Have you or your child just received a dyslexia diagnosis? Or maybe you can't afford one, maybe you can't get access to one, but you're starting to suspect dyslexia in yourself or someone else? Well, you might be feeling a mix of relief or maybe some fear. But stay tuned because we're going to talk about all of these feelings. All right, so if you're here, welcome to the Astronomical Learners YouTube channel. I am Mrs. Deanna. I'm a super prof tutor. I'm a self-identified dyslexic adult, daughter of 2 dyslexic adults, and parent to 2 dyslexic children. And I can tell you dyslexia is not a death sentence. So, first off, I want to tell you that a lot of people do feel relief sometimes when they read the symptoms or read the identifying factors and finally have a name for something that they've been struggling with maybe for years. And maybe some fear because you might have been told, hey, you're never going to be a great reader or you're never going to be a great writer, which isn't true. And or maybe you're a parent being told that your child is just always going to be behind. Maybe they just are always going to be in remediation and you're looking for that little light of hope. Well, I'm here to give you that hope. Today, I want to bust one of the biggest myths in education today, which is that people view dyslexia as a pathogen or think that the dyslexic brain is broken. It's not. It's just wired differently because all human brains are wired differently. And thanks to neurodiversity, which is a biological fact, and thanks to neuroplasticity, which is how our brains rewire themselves, your neurotype or your wiring in your brain is not set in stone. It's just a starting point. But your DNA and your biology is the blueprint for your growth. And newsflash, humans invented reading. Humans also invented writing. Nobody is born knowing how to read and write. That's something you have to be taught. So let's talk about this natural reader fallacy. So there's always going to be this pervasive myth that dyslexic children can't be natural readers. Well, that's true because actually nobody is a natural reader. There are some people that are on a different type of the neurodiversity side of things called hyperlexic, and they actually just learn the code and teach themselves the alphabetic code for the English language. For other languages, it's more logographic, and there's are people that exist that today too, and that's great for them, but the majority of us are going to need to be taught. So there is like this idea of a neurotypical population, which doesn't mean that you're not unique. You are unique. You still have unique brain wiring. But you have a more typical brain wiring that more people would consider average or normal. And within that 40%, either you can learn to read with any type of reading instruction, or you benefit from structured literacy. But when it comes to dyslexia, you do need structured literacy. And I will also say there's another caveat here. No amount of structured literacy or phonics or remediation will help anybody if it is a visual issue. So parents, be aware. You do need to talk to your pediatrician. You need to maybe seek out a developmental ophthalmologist if it is a visual issue, but dyslexia is not a part of the visual issue. Dyslexia is about phonological processing. So you don't have to get lost in these big words. I'm here to break it down for you. So I want you to understand that a lot of kids that just pick up a book and seem to just get it or it clicks, that is going to be your neurotypical reader. But when a child is dyslexic, and most often it is the word is, it's not 100% genetic, it is highly heritable. So that means if you do have a parent that is at least one dyslexic parent, you have a 50% chance. But if you have 2 dyslexic parents, it's almost 100% chance. But with genetics, you have several variables. It's not always guaranteed. But it's a good rule of thumb that if you are a dyslexic parent, you want to learn about structured literacy to help your student in the future. But essentially, you want to remove this conditioned idea of that a diagnosis is a lifetime of coping or getting by. The truth is that reading is not going to be natural for anyone. Again, it's a human invention. Now, there are some brains like my own that will need more explicit instruction, direct instruction. And here's where we talk about how the brain actually works. So, when we talk about neuroscience, and there are a lot of wonderful neuroscientists that have given lectures on YouTube and explained this in advance. Stanislas Dehaene is a French neuroscientist who talks about this. You can Google his name, read his books, wonderful. But essentially, in a typical reading brain, the left hemisphere handles the heavy lifting, and it connects the letters to sounds rapidly. In a dyslexic wired brain, the wiring tries to take a detour through the right hemisphere, which is great for big picture thinking, but slower for phonological processing, which is decoding. So the miracle that is humanity is that neuroplasticity exists. So when you have a teacher that is trained in structured literacy, which understands the 44 phonemes, and you teach a child explicitly the sounds that connect into the letters, which we call phonics, you aren't just teaching, you are helping that child reorganize their brain wiring. So you are building the neural bridge across that gap. That's why I'm not a tutor here on YouTube trying to sell you a daily program, a weekly program, a yearly program. No, the student is doing hard work, and it generally takes it can be anywhere from birth to 6th grade. It depends on the student and their access to structured literacy. Generally, science does tell us that targeted intervention and fMRI scans of dyslexic students show us that they can begin at what we call a typical reader, what they look like, but it doesn't get rid of dyslexia. Your brain wiring doesn't completely go away. There's no cure for your brain wiring because there's no pathogen. There's nothing wrong. But you are helping the child grow a reading brain. So another thing is, when it comes to parenting, which I'm more moving in now, is just advocacy. Because I learned all this the hard way. Now I want to share with the world, I want to share with you this information so you can share it with others when they tell you, hey, just read more to your kid. You just didn't read enough. You can tell them, hey, that's not how it works, because you want to understand, if you are getting diagnosed with dyslexia from a professional, or if you're using a screener online, or if you got a screener from the school, it's not a dead end. It doesn't say, oh, I don't have to worry about reading ever again. What it means is that you have a starting point where the construction crew sets up, and it doesn't always tell us, how high your building can be built, or, how many neurons can you build, or how many pathways can you build in your brain, right? So many of the world's what we call dyslexic thinkers are actually some of our biggest people that we aspire to. There are 7 presidents in the United States, some of our founding fathers that were dyslexic. They're scientists, CEOs, artists. If you go to Neurodiversity Celebration Week, there is a plethora of not just dyslexic people, but that is the most common neurotype, but there's ADHD people, autistic people, OCD, any type of brain wiring, we have representation, and that's a wonderful thing. So the goal shouldn't be to fix somebody's brain wiring. It should be give them tools to access the world so their brilliance can be unlocked. So essentially, if you are watching this video, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. I want you to use my page as a resource or as a jumping off platform to research more for yourself. I'm going to put on the screen here, there is Microsoft Learn Dyslexia training. It's in collaboration with Made by Dyslexia, and so there you can go learn more. There's also a Cox Campus dyslexia training that you can take as well to learn more. You can simply just Google to learn more as well, because a lot of people still think it's just seeing letters reversed, which isn't true. But I definitely want to empower you and understand that me as a tutor, if you tell me that your student is dyslexic, I'm not thinking, oh, this is a really hard job. All I'm thinking is, okay, great, thank you for that information. I'm still going to take their strengths into account. I'm going to assess them just as I would any other student. And if they have weaknesses, we're going to address those areas, but we're not going to focus on those weaknesses. So if you are looking for a structured literacy based tutor, I'm available on SuperProf. Even if you can't afford a tutor, you can like and subscribe to my YouTube channel where I try to put out and publish some really good resources to help parents and family and educators and fellow tutors. And then I also have a website if you want to hire me to be a parent coach to help you through your education journey, hire me as a tutor coach if you want to start your own tutoring journey, or if you are an educator and want to hire me for my expertise when it comes to what I've done right, what I've done wrong. I am here to support you. But anyway, thank you for watching.